something that people might not know about the Lique is that several members are like huge fans of Akinyele, like, and it happened in a way they had never heard of him, like don't remember him from the 90s or nothing, but somebody said some wild lyric that he had said, and if you know his catalog, you know it can get pretty wild. Googled the lyrics, looked up the song, it ended up being his most famous one, and what turned in just kind of like a fun joke is like become an obsession. So yeah. No, it's interesting. Like, the astrology is like a big part of like even our album Times Like These. We got all the astrological signs on our actual CD, and you know, me being a Sagittarius, you know, it's the fire sign. They're the philosopher. We're always interested. I'm the one that's usually like always like thinking about like theology and philosophy and always reading books. Often like can be introverted, but it makes sense that I'm actually like the guy that's speaking the most on stage, because we definitely like to talk a lot as Sagittarians, but we also think, and that's probably the biggest downfall, and I think the band will agree. I tend to overanalyze things, so my gift and my curse is that like I see things all the time, and that's like what Sagittarius does all the time. My birthday is December 3rd, so being a Sagittarius, you know, I tend to I've learned that I fall into all the things that you've learned about Sagittarius.
Fans probably don't know this, but I'm an amazing cook. I like to cook all sorts of things, but my specialty is tilapia with a lemon butter sauce. Fry it up. It's always good. Super easy to make, too.
Something fans might not know about me that they might find interesting. Sorry, the band makes fun of me for this all the time. Is that I was in the honors college at UNLV. I read books or whatever. They think that that's worth teasing me about to no end. But you know, I'm proud that I'm the smartest member of the band. One of my favorite books is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, which is. It's this weird book told from the perspective of a child with developmental disabilities who lost his dad in the World Trade Center attacks. So, light reading. I also really love, Questlove just wrote a book called Creative Quest about, just basically about the process of being creative and how different people have approached it. And I will literally read, watch, or listen to anything that he does, but it was a really, really inspiring piece of work. One of my favorite books about the music industry was, I think it was called Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, The Untold Story of the Wu-Tang Clan's $1 Million Secret Album, The Devaluation of Music, and America's New Public Enemy. One of the most ridiculously long titles I've ever seen. There was a book about the making of that and how it was like bought by Martin Shkreli and all of the like backroom deals and the process of them like taking that as a concept and making it a full thing. They couldn't have made up the details of that story. And reading that book and just hearing RZA's opinions on the devaluation of music and how we can keep music as a form of art was really, really interesting.
Something the fans probably don't know about me is I probably slowed down a little bit, but when I was like first started with the band, I was going to a lot of raves. I'm probably the only one in the band who likes electronic dance music. I just think it's a lot of fun. There's a sense of community in the rave family. But yeah, I really enjoy that music. A lot of us are beat makers actually. And it gives us good inspiration to like create new music. I make a lot of electronic music. So some of the electronic artists and DJs that I mess with, I think there's a lot to be said about. Some of the producers are really, really talented and innovative in the way that they approach, you know, the one I call good producers like a one-man band. They can do everything. They produce the drums, the bass, the synths. Some of them can play guitar. You know, some of these dudes that I'm messing with are like people who do the whole thing, the whole spectrum. Like, oh, there's this French-Canadian artist named Anomaly, and he plays keyboards, but his music is like funky and dancey and pretty much appeals to anybody, and a whole bunch of artists like that. But along the mainstream line, I probably Skrillex had a really profound influence on me. Like, that's what got me into electronic dance music, because I didn't know music could sound like that. And that was very peculiar to me. Like, how is he doing that? And what makes me like it? That kind of opened up a lot of doors for me, because I didn't know I was into synthesis, and I didn't know I was into synth programming or producing until I heard stuff like that. It's also Flying Lotus, who's probably one of my biggest influences, just because if you listen to a Flying Lotus record, even if you like know production, at any point you're just like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, how does he get this sound? And that's kind of what I'm obsessed with. You know, how can I create sonic textures that sound like Skrillex or Flying Lotus or Anomaly? Like, how do I get there, you know? So that's why I'm interested in this kind of thing. So what I primarily produce with is Ableton. I use a synthesizer called Serum, and that's like my main thing. And then everything kind of just comes from that. I have a bunch of sample libraries that I dig from, like Splice. And then I just try to find profound influences and create what they're creating in hopes that I'll find my own sound, you know?
I would also say Sean, who's also like a very like kind of quiet, like polite person, also just has this off-the-wall sense of humor, and he just goes into radios, like starts singing opera like in the middle of his sentence, and like it's just wild. And then like Sean is deeply obsessed with his dog Billy, and he references it at the most inopportune and unnecessary times. And we all think it's hilarious, but like we'll just be talking about anything. It could be a very serious moment. You could be talking about a world disaster, be like, oh, I love Bill Bob Billy. It just, there's a lot of alter egos in this band. I'll definitely say that. Whoever you meet the first time is not exactly the full picture. And I'm still learning who we all are. Nick is just kind of, we gotta reel him in. We don't know where he is all the time. He's just kind of, Nick is just kind of floating. He's probably looking at dogs. It's like dogs or nothing else. That's really all he cares about, just dogs.